Journey. I'll be sharing more about my philosophical and personal aspects of my photography journey, which I think are equally important compared to the technical knowledge that you pick up along the way, because these are what really motivate me to become a better photographer all the time. So I'm a commercial and editorial photographer, specializing in travel, lifestyle, and hospitality, commercial branding, and editorial storytelling. These are some of my editorial clients I've done regular work for: Condé Nast Traveler, Virtuoso Magazine, the New York Times, National Geographic Traveler, and these are some of my corporate and commercial clients. They include BCG, Hewlett Packard, The Standard Singapore, Como Shambhala, among others. And these are some of my other clients that I have worked for and do work with regularly. Before I get into learning and unlearning, I'm going to talk about how I ended up with a career like this. So this is a scanned photo, so I'm sorry for the terrible quality, but I ended up in this career because of my parents. My late father was an amateur photographer who loved taking photos in his free time. And growing up, I heard a lot of stories about how they would take their hard-earned money to go traveling, and he would enlist my mom in helping him take photos, carrying the tripods and the filters and extra lenses. So growing up hearing about all of this, I took a chance class in photography, which then led into another class, and eventually a degree in photography. At 22, when you don't really know what else you're going to be doing, it all sounded really cool. So just so you know, I never expected to end up here today, in this career doing what I do. I didn't expect to last this long. I didn't think I was going to get anywhere. And if I did get somewhere, I thought I was going to end up being a documentary or a war photographer somewhere, some far-flung corner of the world. Definitely not this. But here I am. I've been doing this for 18 years. 18 years is a long time. So for context, I want to share the sort of work that I shoot, about my style, and I also want to begin with a confession. I've spent most of my career, 18 years of it really, learning how to see really, really well. And by that I mean I've learned how to make things look expensive, desirable, and aspirational. And if I've done my job right, it should make you want to say that, oh, I want to go there, or I want to eat that, or I want to do that. I have a clean and natural style, a bit minimalist, and I've been told at times maybe slightly subconsciously mathematical. I try to balance polish with authenticity. I'm proud of having learned the ability and the skills to create images like this somewhat effortlessly. But having said that, the skill I've acquired has also become a habit. It has become a bit of a reflex and a cage, if you will. So after a while, this style and my way of working started to make me feel stuck. Don't get me wrong, I still really enjoy creating images like this. But I will admit that there are phases in my career where I feel like I'm not as inspired, or assignments just didn't bring as much joy anymore. And worst of all, I think sometimes photography actually didn't spark joy. That happens, by the way. So my long-suffering partner, who's back there, he hears me say this all the time. I feel like I saw better when I first started out. I feel like my style seemed looser, I was freer, and I wasn't as obsessed in making things look perfect all the time. And it feels like I'm doing the same thing over and over again, like I'm not going anywhere. So I was worried that if I felt stuck, this would show in my work, and then in turn, I was going to become a worse photographer because I wasn't evolving. So I was so focused on the conditioning I've acquired over the years that it became a rinse repeat every single assignment. So misfocus, it's not a great word in photography. It is often associated with blurry, you're focusing on the wrong thing, or you enter the scene too late. But I like to think of misfocus as a practice in humility, as a counterbalance to not knowing the answers to absolutely everything. The power of misfocus in my photography is that it's not a mistake. It's that it's simply a method of seeing differently, which keeps us learning and unlearning. Now, how many of you feel stuck sometimes in your photography? For those who, oh, quite a lot of you, okay. So I hope that what I'm sharing about today will help you in your journey as well. So when you do your photography as a career, it is inevitable that you will feel stuck, that it becomes a job, it becomes less of a craft. And I think even if you don't do it as a career, you do feel that. And it becomes a grind. You become focused, meeting your clients as brief, and their expectations, really. So it becomes the job that you want to master, rather than the craft. Because you want to get hired again, over and over again, right? So that's natural. So I've learned over the years that photography isn't just about taking photos. It is about being interested. It is about finding stories and really showing up. For me, pictures will always be a lot more meaningful and authentic when there's a connection, when there's a curiosity in the moments that you're photographing. And I can't stress enough how important it is, really, to take your time, anywhere. It is the first thing I do when I show up in a country. I take the first day and I walk around with my camera, and not necessarily taking photos, but I dive deep. I find neighborhoods. It could be somewhere I've been to before, but it's never the same twice. So I try and approach it with fresh eyes, with a bit more curiosity, trying to see what I could do differently this time around. So oftentimes, just walking around sets me in the right mindset. It's oftentimes also a reset. It opens my mind to new possibilities and situations. So this story I photographed recently for Kanana's Traveler in Penang. And I know Penang fairly well. And when you think of Penang, you think popular culture, street food, that sort of thing. But I wasn't actually there to photograph that. I was interestingly there to photograph the fine dining places in Penang, which I wasn't really familiar with. But I thought you couldn't go to Penang and not shoot some of the hawker stalls, some of what makes Penang iconic. So I added to this brief of mine that wasn't part of it. I went around, walked around Penang, and shot some of the street food. And to me, this really became a much richer experience and much more complete, because I was discovering new things. I was discovering new places. I made interactions with new people. And the same thing really applies to portraits. Take time to get to know someone. This series of portraits was actually taken last week on assignment for the New York Times. I was there to photograph Kira Po. She's our Singaporean our Singaporean indoor world skydiving champion. And I had 45 minutes to do this at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I know she's busy, and I know she has things to do. But I took the time to get to know her, to ask her questions about how she got started, what she enjoyed about skydiving, and that opened her up a little bit and made the process a lot more fun. Most people are not that comfortable having the camera pointed at them. They become awkward and kind of freeze up a little bit. And getting to know someone really, really helps that process. I feel it makes the entire portrait session feel a lot more conversational, a lot more natural, and it helps everybody warm up a little bit. And then practice. Practice, practice, practice. We don't know everything. Just because we do photography for a living doesn't mean we know everything about it. So, my biggest challenge to this day is lighting. I do not like the light. Partly out of preference, because I like my natural light. I think it's beautiful. But at the same time, also, it's really out of fear. I just never think I know what I'm doing. But bless these guys, my longtime and really awesome clients, Jigger and Pony. I work with them for their menus and everything. They asked me one day over the COVID lockdowns and said, hey, we need people to photograph our cocktails. Would you want to do it? So I said, yes, of course. But inside, I was panicking a little bit because I didn't think I knew what I was doing. So I had no idea how to light glass, liquids, cocktails. So we went with what we knew best at that point. We used the bar as a backdrop with simpler lighting. And over the years, I learned, I picked up new skills. The team learned alongside with me. And it's become a cohesive team effort over the years. And over the years also then, it became a lot more ambitious. We started building sets with each shoot. We went more and more conceptual, requiring more technical skills, requiring more lighting, pushing me, as well as everybody else, to do better, and developing a head for creative problem solving. So just because we do photography for a living doesn't mean we're experts. This was really scary at the beginning. I didn't know whether I could do it, but I worked through the discomfort, and I'm super proud of what the team has achieved over the years together. Now, trusting yourself, that's probably one of the harder things. I think a lot of us have doubts about our abilities, about our skills, and we do get stuck in that mindset. So I photographed a story for a dream client of mine, Dwell Magazine. So for those of you who are interested in interiors or architecture, you'll know Dwell. They photograph houses in different parts of the world, really unique ones. So an email came in about a year and a half ago asking whether I wanted to photograph a house in Singapore. So of course I said yes, until I saw the house. So don't get me wrong, it looks like this. It is completely open to the elements, overgrown with vegetation. It had no doors, no windows, and in Singapore. So, and that one thing I practiced this entire time, all that lighting skills I acquired, couldn't use it because we couldn't light the shoot. It had to be natural light. So imagine this panic inside my head, and it was really interesting, to be honest. We were battling weather, rain, so you can see the house was open to the elements. There is obviously a roof, but it was open, so when the rain comes in, the floor does get wet. We had low light. There's a green tint to the wall from the trailing vegetation because it just colored everything. You don't see that here because I've removed that in post. That was a lot of work. We were battling noise because, again, no windows, so no sound isolation. There are cats meowing, dogs barking, neighbors coughing, people cooking, construction in 4 different places. So we had to get really, really creative. And we had 2 days. One day was strictly for stills, and one day was strictly for videos. So you can imagine the stress that I was under. But throughout all this, though, I thought, I have to believe in myself. I have to deliver, no matter how difficult this entire thing is. So my team and I, we slowed down. We problem solved one frame at a time, be it photos, be it interviews, be it the video. And the truth is, we delivered. We're proud of the results, and it has been one of the more widely shared stories on the Dwell account, as well as different architectural accounts online. The one thing I'm not very good at is having patience and learning how to listen to my inner voice. So there's a story to this photo. This photo was shot on Sumba Island in Indonesia about 10 years ago, and I was there to photograph a beach story. And I was looking for a sunset, which hadn't happened yet, and this is my last evening. While this is not the sunset photo that I'm looking for, this photo will stay with me for the rest of my life because of the lessons I learned. So I went off to a lookout point to look for a sunset, nothing but gray skies. And I thought, you know what? It's the last day, it's the last evening, I'm going to call it a day. Just, go back to the hotel, have my dinner, and take the evening off. But there was this little inner voice that started speaking in my head that said, no, just stay a little longer, see what happens. So I stayed a little longer, and the skies parted, and for about 30 seconds or so, a ray of light shone onto this beach and gave me this photo. The photo didn't run in the end, but it taught me the biggest lesson that I'll never forget. To always do the extra thing that your brain tells you to do. Be patient and listen to your gut. So nowadays, every assignment, inevitably there will be one moment at the end that comes in and I think about it where, well, should I do this extra thing? Should I fly the drone? Or should I wait a little longer? Should I walk another 100 meters to see how it looks like? And the truth is, I get lazy. And I'm like, oh, maybe I don't really need it. But when that voice kicks in, I do it. And more often than not, nowadays, a lot of these photos do end up running. Which brings me to my next point, this photo. And this exact story. So the next two slides are actually another story, from another story I shot in Sumba a lot more recently, about a month ago. The story ran last weekend in the New York Times, in print as well as online. And these next two slides really are probably what's most difficult for me. I find it difficult learning to be grateful for the time given, for serendipitous moments that are given to you as a gift. So I had 48 hours to shoot my assignment, 48 hours on the ground. So I knew there were no do-overs. If there's bad weather, you deal with it, you roll with it. And this is frankly really my favorite photo of the entire assignment, taken from a rolled down car window. We were there at the right place, at the right time, and I see the scene that's unfolding in front of me, the horses, the dog that was running somewhere, and I thought, this is perfect, but I had somewhere to be. I shot this from a car window, and then we had to go. And I roll up the car window, and we drive along, and I thought, goodness, I wish for more. I wish I had more time. I wish I got out of the car. I wish I asked the driver to move back a little bit so I could get a better shot. And I kept thinking about what I could have done more, what I wished for more. I wasn't being grateful. So that same day, a few hours later, I actually got out of the car for this one. I learned my lesson from the first time around. This was a series of portraits that we stumbled upon. We were driving from the south of Sumba to the north. Again, I was chasing appointments. I had somewhere to be, but I thought this looked really interesting. The entire village had come out. They were dressed colorfully, so we thought this could be an interesting thing. So we got out of the car, and we started speaking to the locals who were extremely welcoming and said, hi, come in, take photos, what's going on? And so a nun had tapped me, and I asked her, is this a wedding? And she said, no, actually, this is a funeral. And I felt so bad that I apologized. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to, we thought this was a wedding. And she said, no, not at all. Please join us. This is a celebratory funeral. This is the last day. We'd like for you to come experience this with us. But since I couldn't stay and had somewhere to be, I apologized. We took some photos of the locals who were really happy to have their photos taken and went on our way. And again, like the same morning, I went away from this wishing I had more time. I wish I went in, I wish I didn't have somewhere to be. And then I realized that this is the lesson I needed to learn. I needed to learn how to be grateful for a scene that wasn't even in my brief, was not even something that most people get to see. So I've also realized that you could have left me in the same place 5 days in a row for an entire month even, and I would show up at the same place, different times of the day, and then I'll realize that it's also not enough. There'll always be something more to photograph. There's always going to be something more that you want. So when I reach this stage, it makes me realize that I needed to unlearn a lot of these habits that make me feel stuck in my work, which is where we get to unlearning. Because learning also carries a shadow. When we start out in photography, we learn to see, right? We learn we learn what works. We learn the rules. We learn good taste. We learn good composition. And we learn good editing. And all of this really is necessary and really valuable. But at some point to grow, we also have to learn all of these skills that we have acquired over the years. Remember that unlearning is not forgetting. Unlearning is simply expanding. It is acquiring more knowledge. So I had to learn my subconscious way and mathematical way of photographing. to train myself to make images that really felt a lot more natural and that don't come naturally to me. So if you can see, I like my images clean, minimalist. I'm weirdly obsessed about symmetry and straight lines. So it really takes a lot out of me to shoot more like this, like a lot more free, a lot closer, less composed. Unlearning to me means questioning what I think is beautiful, questioning the habits that have made me efficient, but maybe in some ways bored and stuck. It means letting go of my own reflexes to continually want to correct and perfect and improve. So I've made myself value clean, crisp, and perfect images over the years. By consciously unlearning, I've had to challenge my own visual habits and how I really look at the world through my lens. That's not easy with so many years of conditioning. So I started small. I started allowing imperfections. I started allowing blurred frames or off-center moments, shooting through glass, rather than more composed and formal scenes like this. So I found moments where the wrong photos, so to say, told truer stories, in my opinion, like this low light image that you see on the right there. So instead of perfection, I tried to strive for more authenticity, a more lived-in, authentic life. So flashback to my earlier work. So it doesn't mean that I don't do this anymore. I have to do this. Certain briefs will require it, certain clients will require it. But what I realize I can do now is I can consciously leave more room for imperfection, for experimentation, to not be so perfect all the time. So like this, I think you see a little bit of a difference where, the earlier work was slightly brighter, a little bit more polished, and there's just a little, I've allowed a little bit more imperfection for these. So this is what I try and do now. I try to suggest and not tell. I try not to shove so much information down my viewers' throats, right? It's about making space for an alternative way of seeing, something that's more emotional, something that's more non-linear. And funny enough, I'm not a gear person at all. So the most unlearning for me actually came in the form of a lens. This one right here, the Sony 50-150 f2. So Sony came to me about a few months ago asking me to test out this lens. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a new 7200 or something like that. No, it turns out it was a 50-150 and I had no idea what to do with this. So I'm getting old, I want to travel lighter, and this lens is a monster for those of you who have used it. Kind of like this size. No, I'm kidding. I'm thinking, I have my zooms covered. I have my 2470, I have my 7200, and then I have my primes. What would I do with this? So I took it for a spin. One for a collaboration with Sony for a ballet practice, and then I actually took it for an assignment. And all of that doubt about not knowing where this lens fits, gone. It's really amazing. I love using it. And this is really important, by the way. I'll get to that later. So I went to photograph ballet practice at SDGS, and now I like ballet a lot, but I don't know a single thing about it when it comes to the technical points. I don't know what the positions are called, I don't know when they leap, I don't know when they do what, but I thought, since I do own lenses in the range of 50 to 150, at least I know what I can do with it. So I took this lens, and I knew I could use it for anything from wider shots, to portraits, to setting shots of details, to movements. And considering I am new to this, I'm very pleased with how this turned out. It was really fun shooting with the 50-150, and going into this, I started with more formal shots. That's really when my reflex kicked in. That's how I usually do things. But over time, I got comfortable, I took a bit of a step back, and I learned to let loose just a little bit. I love challenging myself in an unfamiliar environment with a new lens, and I was excited to see what I could do with this just one lens. And I came out of this experience really, really, truly refreshed. And like I said, this is important because I've been feeling a little stuck in my work, And it was amazing how much joy this entire experience sparked after feeling stuck in my creative process. The second shoot I took this lens to was for a jewelry shoot in Bali. And this is the only lens I traveled with. This is probably one of the bravest decisions I've ever made. Didn't take anything else. But I also knew that the location had a bit of space for me to move around, and I knew at this point what the lens could do, what it was capable of, and I knew what I needed. I needed some jewelry shots, I needed some modeling shots, I needed some process shots, and I needed portraits. So Sony, really thank you for getting me to test out this lens, because these two shoots have been really, really pivotal and important for me in recent memory. Because I've learned how to see and shoot differently, and most importantly, it's really taught me how to find joy in photography again. So feeling stuck is normal. This happens, even to those of us for whom this is a job. So I'm going to close with my two favorite shots from those two shoots. And along with these, I hope I have shared with you about a little bit of my creative process, about my own work, my own journey, and what motivates me to be a better photographer. Photography has really given me a lot. It's given me a life that I couldn't have ever imagined. And someone told me once that we shoot who we are, and we really shoot how we feel. And I do believe that's true. For me, I'm at my best when I enjoy and when I find joy in what I do. But what I realized when I was stuck in my own process, finding joy really needs to start with the right and open mindset, to be willing to learn and to go beyond what's needed. You need to be willing to let go of old habits and challenge yourself with discomfort until that discomfort becomes comfortable. So I believe your pictures will always show how much you're enjoying that process of taking the pictures and creating the moments that you see. We need to remember that photography isn't just about what we see, it is about how we feel through what we see. So I challenge you to make a photograph or project that fails your own brief or your own expectations of how things are supposed to be or how things are supposed to look like, but at least it tells more of a truth to you. So we're not born with all the answers. I don't have all the answers, and I'm still always constantly learning. And it is important to remember that we don't need to always doubt ourselves when we don't know the answers. This is really all a journey, even for me. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm always learning. And I don't think I'm ever not scared. I think I'm scared a lot, and I think that's normal. And that's something that you should lean into as well. When you're scared of something, it's probably a good thing to try. I've never photographed dance before, in general. My thought process going into the shoot was really just observation. I think it pays off for me, at least, to walk in early, to get familiar with the space. I examine the light, I look at how much space we have, I see what we can work with. I see how to minimize distractions, how to make the girls who are performing the dance and performing the movements for me, how to make it jump out more. I look at I used a 50-150, so that lens with an f2 really helped to separate the subject from the background as well. So it really is about moving around in the room. It is about taking a step back and examining what you can do with it, because I'm not necessarily always good at being handed a square box, a room with a bunch of people in it and making something out of it. So it was really challenging to see what we could do. So I made sure I told an entire story. I tried to set the scene, I made portraits, I shot some detailed photos of the girls and their point shoes, their movements, how they stretch, their arms. So just a little bit of everything to make it more of a complete story. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so you need the drill, I think you guys should know by now, you were here previously.
To what looks clean, what looks neat, But I think the truth is it takes a lot of effort for me. So my reflex will usually, when I show up for any assignment, my reflex even today is still to make things look neat, make things look clean. Like this is, okay, I have everything lined up, the portrait is like this, the details are like this, and then at that point, that's kind of where I'm learning to catch myself, right? Okay, I have all of the ways I usually shoot down. I have everything I need in what I think my assignment needs. And that's when I stop and say, okay, let's try something different, right? So you go for it. I decide to, okay, I've got my formal portrait, she's look friendly, she's look left, she's look right. Let's try something different. Let's make it blurred, or let's go a little closer. So it takes effort. And I don't think there is a point where I say, okay, this looks good. There's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of failing, right? The good news nowadays is that we're not wasting film, right? We're not paying like $5 a frame to develop and scan and everything. We can take 2,000 photos and then find one that works. So while I'm not saying that that's necessarily always how we do it, because you don't want to go through 2,000 photos to find the right one, but that's a point where you can start. So fail a lot, really. I mean, I spent a lot of time photographing things that don't work to find a few things that do work. And I think over time, practice, you get better at it. And I think your brain slowly learns how to say, okay, no, let's do this, or let's do that. And those reflexes that you've honed over the years will then also change and slowly shift. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, LP. Alright, I think we got time for a couple more questions. So, anyone else would like to ask? At this side? Okay.
Hi, my name is Yu Fei. So I think you mentioned you had the 2870 and 7200. So the 50...
24/7. I have tried the 2870 and it's excellent.
No, but you mentioned so you kind of have the 50 to 150 already.
Yes.
I mean, hardly new focal length for you. So
Yes.
what made the 50 to 150 such a different lens for you in this sense?
So the f2 is really nice. Okay, the truth about the f2, as much as it's really nice, my work doesn't really allow for that. So I need to have a certain depth of field in my photos to make it work, because it does skew towards editorial commercial. So it needs to have that depth. But what really made this lens work for me was that it could really cover everything you needed it to. I didn't need to change the lens. So the 50, I mean, this is obviously give that you have a lot of space to move back a little bit and you know what you're working with. But the 50 really allowed me to get my setting shots, because I don't typically shoot very wide. I know a lot of photographers are like, what, you have a 2470 and that's it, you don't have a 1635? But I'm never at 24. I'm hardly shooting at 24, because that's not my natural style. I shoot at 24 maybe to crop if I needed to have some perspective correction maybe, but that's really it. I don't use it. So that's how I know the 50 will work for me. That's my own personal style. And then on the 150 end, it's really everything I need. So between the 50 and 150, one lens, enough. Really nice, yeah.
Okay, I think we got time for one last question.
Trying to push yourself to Unlearn, which are to go for not so razor sharp photos. Like it's okay to go for blurry shots. Just capture the emotion. That's what the most important thing it matters to me. Then another one, sorry, I kind of forgot. Maybe you have the person to share first.
Okay, sure. We'll get back to you.
Hi, so my name is Lucas. I think I have a similar question to Alvin did. So I also have a tendency to sort of default to the symmetrical, very clean looking images. But my issue is when I try to move out of that and I look at the photo, when I see I don't like it, I delete.
Very good question. So the way I look at my own experimentations, let's say, my blurry photos, my, sometimes cut off photos, what I do is that I try to not look at them as one photo as a whole. I try and craft stories. So what could make it more palatable to your nature, maybe also, before you delete, is see how pictures like that will benefit your entire story. So look at it from a larger perspective rather than the photo as its own, because when you start out trying to shoot differently, you look at all these photos and say, these don't really mean anything. They don't look like anything good to me. But you'll be surprised oftentimes that when you pair it with something else, when you compare contrast with another photo, it could work very well. So that's how I train my brain to look at it, right? Oh, this looks actually kind of nice next to this. Or this actually looks kind of good as part of the whole story. And this is for you, for your own learning, for your own archives, for your own arsenal. It's for you sometimes also depending on what assignments you're shooting. You may never get that assignment again. So why not go above and beyond? Why not try and create something different to see what else you can do with it? So yeah, I get what you're saying. You get the burnout after you shoot 300, 500, sometimes 1,500 shots. And you're like, oh my God, I gotta go home. I gotta like cull all of these and have to grade it and everything. But it's worth it in the end. So I get stuck in this process when I come home and I load all my photos. And I have this terrible habit of actually editing each photo kind of before I cull. So I'm actually doing a lot more work than I'm supposed to, right? So this is the habit, right? So I'm like, I can't bear trashing images before I get to them. It's not like one of those like, okay, cull, and then we'll edit this one. So it's also one of that process where I know I need to learn, right? I'm taking 1,500 photos. Okay, let's systematically go good, bad, good, bad, good, bad before spending that amount of time so you don't get that burnout. Because I understand what that's like.
Actually, the shots that I really love are ones that I shot past the client's requirements.
Exactly. It's always like that. It's a bit like my inner voice talking, right? I think I shared a little earlier when I feel like I'm done with a shoot. I'm tired. I'm on the road. I've been on the road for days and I just want to be done and call it a day. But that inner voice always tells me, do more, just a little bit more. And it's always worth it. It's never failed me. I will say that. Like, I think that Sumba story, I didn't show a drone shot that I took at the end. So literally, this was after breakfast, on the way to the room to grab my bags before going to the airport. I stopped in front of a lobby and I thought, I don't have a drone shot of this. Maybe I should do it, but then I gotta take it all out and I gotta pack it again and we gotta go to the airport. I was like, should I do it? Should I not do it? But then that one split second, I thought, no, decision made, do it. Took the drone out, flew it, the shot ran. So it's worth it.
Thank you, Laurie.
Welcome.